Before we can texture our model, we first need to UV unwrap it. We only need to unwrap those parts that we are going to apply PBR material texture sets. That is, the suitcase, handle, pads, and rings meshes. We don't need to unwrap those parts that we are going to apply using normal stamping, the locks, hinges, and feet. Open Blender 07.blend if it is not already open. Switch to the UV editing workspace. Add a UV map, keyboard shortcut Image menu, select New, and name the map UV Map. Then select OK. Save the map. We will begin by unwrapping the suitcase mesh. In the 3D Editor window and in Object Mode, hide all of the meshes except the suitcase mesh. Select the suitcase mesh. Switch to Edit Mode, and with the suitcase mesh selected, Smart UV Project Unwrap. Keyboard shortcut the U key, select Smart UV Project, set the island margin to 0.03, and select OK. In the UV editing window, unhide the Properties panel and select the UV Packmaster 3 tab. Check Heuristic Search and set the search time to 10. This will look for the most efficient packing, that is, the one that fills the UV map to the greatest extent. In the UV editing window, select the islands and then select Pack. Let's now unwrap the handle mesh. Switch to Object Mode. Hide the suitcase mesh and select the handle mesh. In Edit Mode and Edge Selection Mode, select the end ring of edges. Keyboard shortcut Shift plus the Alt plus the left mouse button. And mark the seam. Keyboard shortcut right mouse button and select Mark Seam. Repeat for the other end. With the handle mesh selected, unwrap. Keyboard shortcut the U key, then select Unwrap. Rotate the islands minus 90 degrees. And move out of the UV map tile. Select the handle mesh and the suitcase mesh and scale and move the handle mesh into the open space in the upper right-hand corner of the UV map, leaving room to add the pads mesh and the rings mesh. Unhide and select the pad's mesh. Mark the seams of the upper faces and one of the end edges. Delete the bottom faces if still present. With the pad's mesh selected, unwrap. Keyboard shortcut the U key, then select Unwrap. Rotate and position the islands in the upper right-hand corner of the UV map, as shown. Hide the visible meshes and unhide and select the rings mesh. Select and mark the seams under the ring segments. With the rings mesh selected, unwrap. Keyboard shortcut the U key, then select Unwrap. Move above the tile. Unhide and select the suitcase, handle, pads, and rings meshes. Select, scale, and move the rings mesh to the space in the upper right-hand corner of the UV map. Save the UV map. Keyboard shortcut, select the Image menu, then Save As. Then Save as Image. With the suitcase, handle, pads, and rings meshes visible and selected in the UV editing window, export the UV map. Keyboard shortcut, select the UV menu, then Export UV Layout. Set the fill opacity to 1.000 and select Export UV Layout. This would be a good time to save your work. Save your Blender file as suitcase08.blend. To texture the suitcase and the handle and handle pads, we are going to use the photos of the suitcase. We first need to correct for parallax, then crop the images. We can accomplish both adjustments using GIMP, a program you can download from the internet and use for free. I would also like to remove some of the reflection the lighting added to the photos by using the clone and healing tools of GIMP. Copies of the photos and the adjusted images are available here. Open GIMP and open the front.jpg photo. Zoom in. Keyboard shortcut Command plus Scroll. And pan to position the suitcase. Keyboard shortcut Spacebar and drag. Add guides to the sides of the suitcase, aligning the top and left-hand guides with the top left-hand corner, the bottom guide with the bottom left-hand corner, and the right guide with the top right-hand corner. Select the Perspective tool. Keyboard shortcut Shift plus the P key, and drag the corners of the suitcase to align with the guides. When you are satisfied with the alignment, select Transform. Select the Crop tool, keyboard Shift plus the C key, and crop the image. Select Enter to complete the action. Select the Clone tool, keyboard shortcut the C key, and remove the glare on the left-hand side of the image. You can adjust the size in the panel on the right. Select the location to clone. Keyboard shortcut Command plus the left mouse button. Then move the cursor to where you want to paint, and paint. Select the Heal tool, keyboard shortcut the H key, to smooth the corrections. This is where your artistic skills will come in handy. Try to leave the worn edges untouched. When you are satisfied with your effort, save your image. Keyboard shortcut File menu, then select Export As, and change the format to PNG. Select File Type by extension, select PNG, and select Export twice. Repeat the process for the remaining sides. Use the Clone tool to remove the locks, hinges, and feet. For the top, create two images, one with the handle and pads, and one without. We can now use GIMP to assemble the diffuse map for the leather suitcase. We are going to use the UV layout as a guide and add the individual sides as layers. Open GIMP and import the uvlayout.png image. Keyboard shortcut, select the File menu, then Open, then locate and load the file. The image is already scaled to 1024 by 1024 pixels, a power of 2. Add the front image as a layer. Keyboard shortcut, select the File menu, then Open as Layer, then locate and load the file. Rotate 90 degrees. Keyboard shortcut Shift plus the R key, then holding the Shift key down, drag in 5-degree increments. Move into position. Keyboard shortcut the M key and drag. Use the Perspective tool. Keyboard shortcut Shift plus the P key to adjust the size. Select Transform to confirm. Continue importing the images as layers. After selecting the image to import and selecting OK in the browser window, select Escape to complete the import. It's strange that you should have to do this. Maybe it's a bug in the program. However, it works. Import the handle.png image, scale to fit the handle and pads. Save the file. Keyboard shortcut, select the File menu, then Export As. Name the file Diffuse and select Export twice. The normal map can be generated from the Diffuse Map within GIMP. With the Diffuse Map open in GIMP, select the Filter menu, then Generic, and then Normal Map. Then OK. Save the file. Keyboard shortcut, select the File menu, then Export As. Name the file Normal, and select Export twice. Roughness maps impart a dull or shiny appearance, depending upon how white or black they are respectively. The whiter, the more matte. The blacker, the glossier. Usually they are some shade of gray in between. For example, here is a roughness map of a somewhat dull wood texture, and that of a shiny metal. Roughness maps can be generated in GIMP. I like to follow the suggestion of Jen Abbott, who in his video describes GIMP methods for producing all of the texture maps used for Trainz. To generate a roughness map, open the diffuse image in GIMP. In the Color menu, select Desaturate. Then in the submenu, select Desaturate again, and then select OK. In the Color menu, select Levels. Move the center stop to the left to approximately the right edge of the peak in the graph to make the image lighter, that is, more matte. In the File menu, select Export As. Name your file roughness.png and save. Copies of the normal and roughness maps are available here. For the rings mesh, we are going to need a metal PBR material texture set. I've chosen Metal 02 1K from Ambient CG. We are now ready to texture the suitcase using PBR Painter. Open Blender 08.blend. Switch to the PBR Painter workspace. Drag down the bottom border of the 3D editor window to increase its size. Select Object Mode. In the outline window on the left, select the suitcase mesh. In the 3D Editor window's Properties panel, with the PBR Painter tab selected, select New to add a new material. Name the material Leather. In the Properties window on the right, select Set Up Material for PBR Painter. Uncheck Backup Current Material. Uncheck Set Fake User and select OK. Select the new layer icon and name the new layer Leather. Under Filled Painted, keep Filled, and select OK. Select the Import Material icon. Locate and load the leather textures: Diffuse, Normal, and Roughness. Select Refresh Material to see the PBR material set on your model. Switch to the UV editing workspace, and if need be, adjust the positioning of the textures to cover the edges of the suitcase. In the UV editing window, select the Diffuse Map. Menu bar, then select the image icon and select diffuse.png. With the UV Sync selection toggled on, in the 3D Editor window, select the face. Then in the UV Editing window, expand to include the bevels. Keyboard shortcut Control plus the number pad plus key. And drag on the X or Y axis. Keyboard shortcut the G key and either the X or the Y key and drag. Switch back to the PBR Painter workspace. Select the handle mesh and apply the leather material. Select the pad mesh and apply the leather material. Switch to the UV Editing workspace and, if need be, adjust the position of the textures. Switch back to the PBR Painter workspace and select the rings mesh. Add a new material. Name the material Metal. In the Properties window on the right, select Set Up Material for PBR Painter. Uncheck Backup Current Material. Uncheck Set Fake User and select OK. Select the new layer icon and name the new layer Metal. Under Filled Painted, keep Filled and select OK. Select the Import Material icon. Locate and load the metal 002 1K, albedo, metal, normal, and roughness. Select Refresh Material. This would be a good time to save your work. Before saving, I like to pack the texture files into the Blender file. Then if I should move either the Blender file or the texture files on my computer, the textures will remain linked to the Blender file. Select the File menu, then External Data, then Pack Resources. Save your Blender file as blender09.blend. We are now ready to apply the locks, hinges, and feet as normal stamps. First, let's create a template Blender file that we can use over and over again to create the normal stamps. The process is taken from a video, Workflow for Creating Normal Decals in Blender, by CG Cookie. Open Blender, remove the cube, and add a plane primitive. Add a camera. With the camera selected, remove the rotation. Keyboard shortcut Alt plus the R key. Change the outline window to a 3D editor window and expand the space by dragging the borders. Switch to camera view. Keyboard shortcut numberpad 0 key. Switch to front view and drag the camera up to above the plane mesh. In the Properties window, select the Camera tab and change the camera type to orthographic. Select the Output tab and change the X and Y resolutions to 1024 by 1024 pixels. Switch back to the Camera tab and reduce the scale until the camera is just a bit larger than the plane, say an orthographic scale of 2.1. Scroll the menu bar and hide Show Gizmo and Show Overlays. Select the shading chevron at the right end of the menu bar and change the lighting from Studio to Madcap. Select the image and select the normal map. Center and zoom in on the normal map. In the Properties window, select the Render tab. Scroll down and open the Film chevron. Check Transparency. In the 3D Editor window in the upper right-hand corner, scroll the menu bar to the right. Change the Properties window to an outline window. Save the Blender file as Create Normal Stamp Template. We probably could apply the locks together, but I'm going to apply each separately. So let's begin by separating the left and right-hand lock meshes. Open Blender 09.blend. In Object Mode, hide all the meshes. Then unhide and select the lock mesh. Switch to Top View. Switch to Edit Mode, Vertex Selection Mode, and toggle on Wireframe and X-ray modes. Select the left-hand lock and separate. Keyboard shortcut the P key. Name the mesh Lock Left. Name the other lock Lock Right. While we are at it, let's create a mesh with just one hinge and a mesh with just one foot. In Object Mode, hide the lock meshes and unhide the hinge mesh. Switch to Bottom View. Switch to Edit Mode and select the left hinge and separate. Name the meshes Hinge Left and Hinge Right, respectively. In Object Mode, select the Feet mesh. Then switch to Edit Mode and select one of the feet and separate. Name the mesh Foot. Save your work. Save your Blender file as blender10.blend. Open a copy of your Create Normal Stamp Template Blender file. In Object Mode, append the Lock Left mesh. Keyboard shortcut, select the File menu, then Append, then locate and open the blender10.blend file. Select Object and Open. Then select Lock Left and select Append. With the Lock Left mesh still selected, set the origin to the geometry. Keyboard shortcut, select the Object menu, then select Set Origin, and select Origin to Geometry. Move the Lock Left mesh up on the Z-axis until it is above the plane. Switch to Top View, then scale and move to fit the outline of the plane. Toggle on snapping. Set the target to face project. Snap the Lock Left mesh to the plane. keyboard shortcut the G key, then with the mouse cursor hovered over the plane, select the Z key. Toggle off snapping. Select the plane and hide. Keyboard shortcut the H key. In the 3D editor window in the upper right-hand corner, select the View menu. Then select View Render Image. In the Image menu bar, select the Image menu, then Save As. Name the image lockleft.png and save. Close the View Render Image window. Unhide the plane. Keyboard shortcut Alt plus the H key. And in the outline window, hide the lock left mesh. Repeat the process for the lock right, hinge left, and foot meshes. For the hinge and the foot, you will have to rotate the meshes 180 degrees on the y-axis. Save your file as normalstamps.blend. We are now ready to apply the normal stamps to the suitcase mesh. Open Suitcase10.blend. In object mode, hide all of the meshes. Then unhide the lock left mesh and the suitcase mesh. Switch off wireframe and X-ray modes. Switch to top view. With the suitcase mesh selected and the leather material selected, add a new filled layer and name it Locked Left. Select the normal channel and set to texture. Select New to create a new texture and name it Lock Left Texture. Set the size to 2048 by 2048 pixels and select 32-bit and OK. Select Refresh Material. Still in the Properties window on the right, select Paint. In the Properties window on the left, check Brush Texture and expand the chevron. Add a new texture. Select Open and locate and load the lockleft.png normal stamp you created. Select Stencil and change the color space to non-color. In the 3D editor window, drag the stencil into position. Keyboard shortcut the right mouse button and drag. Scale the stencil to fit the lock left mesh. Keyboard shortcut Shift plus the right mouse button and drag. Once you have the stencil in position and scaled, hide the lock left mesh. I'm going to move the stencil up a bit to better position the lock. Increase the brush radius to 200 pixels. Paint on the stencil. Move the mouse cursor off the 3D editor window to see the result. Alternatively, you can uncheck Brush Texture. Save your image by selecting Save Image. Stenciling is saved automatically at the interval you have set in the preferences, but it is a good idea to check that the stenciling is saved before saving your Blender file and closing it. Save your work. Save your Blender file as blender11.blend. The texture can be painted directly onto the stencil if you have a steady hand. Alternatively, you can create a mask in GIMP. Open GIMP and add a new layer. Keyboard shortcut, select the File menu, then New, and set the size to 1024 by 1024 pixels, and select OK. In the File menu, select Open as Layers. Locate and open the lockleft.png normal stamp you created. Reduce the scale. Keyboard shortcut Shift plus the S key and drag a corner handle. Center the image. Keyboard shortcut the M key and drag. Select the Fuzzy Selection tool. Keyboard shortcut the U key and select the background of the lockleft.png image. In the Selection menu, select Invert. In the Edit menu, select Cut. Select the paint bucket, keyboard shortcut Shift plus the B key, and fill the lock silhouette with white. In the Selection menu, select Invert. In the Edit menu, select Cut. Save your image. Select File menu, then Export As. Name your file Lock Left Mask and save as a PNG file by selecting Enter twice. Open Blender 11.blend if it is not already open. With the suitcase mesh selected and the leather material selected, add a new layer. Name the layer Metal. And select Painted. Then select OK. Select the Import Material icon. Locate and load the Metal 0021K, Albedo, Metal, Normal, and Roughness. Select Refresh Material. Select the normal layer and select Combine Normals. Select Refresh Material. In the Properties window on the left, uncheck Brush Texture and close the chevron. Check Brush Mask and open the chevron. Select New and then select Open. Locate and load LockLeftMask.png. Select Stencil. In the 3D Editor window, drag the mask into position. Keyboard shortcut Alt plus right mouse button and drag. Scale the mask to fit the lock left mesh stencil. Keyboard shortcut Shift plus Alt plus right mouse button and drag. Paint the texture onto the stencil. Save your image by selecting Save Image. Having created and applied a normal stamp for lock left, and created a mask and applied the metallic texture, repeat the process for lock right, the hinges, and the feet. To better view the bottom of the model when applying the normal stamps for the hinges and feet, change the world lighting to fixed by opening the render chevron and clicking on the world lighting icon. If you accidentally rotate a normal stamp or mask, expand the mask mapping chevron and reset the rotation to 0 degrees. My finished model with the locks, hinges, and feet has 16,070 triangles. Using normal stamps to apply the locks, hinges, and feet, reduce the poly count to 430 triangles. Save your work. Save your Blender file as blender12.blend.